All right, let's get into something that is absolutely fundamental to writing solid, safe Swift code. We're talking about class initializers, the blueprint for everything you build.
And let's be honest, have you ever looked at init versus convenience init and just scratched your head, wondering what the real difference is? If so, you are definitely not alone. It's a classic stumbling block, but I promise by the end of this, it's all going to click into place.
You know, the best way to think about this is like you're constructing a building. You wouldn't just start throwing up walls, right? Of course not. You need a blueprint. You need to make absolutely sure the foundation is poured and set before anything else happens. That's exactly what initialization does for your objects in Swift. It's a guarantee that they start off in a perfectly valid, safe state every single time.
And at the heart of this blueprint are two key players. First, you've got the designated initializer. This is your foundation, the non-negotiable core of the construction. Then, you have the convenience initializer. Think of this one as the handy shortcut, the prefab wall that helps you build faster.
Okay, so let's start where any good construction project should, with the foundation. Let's talk about designated initializers, the primary builder for any class you create.
So what is it really? A designated initializer is the main official constructor for a class. Its whole job is to be the ultimate source of truth, making sure an object is fully assembled and ready to go. It's where the buck stops, and every class has to have at least one.
And it has two incredibly strict rules it must follow. First, it has to initialize every single stored property in its class. No exceptions, no leaving things half-finished. Second, if this class inherits from a parent, a superclass, it must call one of its parents' designated initializers. These two rules are the bedrock of Swift safety.
And would you look at that syntax? It's so clean. In our vehicle class, the init takes in the number of wheels and assigns it to the wheels property. Simple, direct. It does its one job and it does it perfectly.
So now that we have that solid foundation, let's talk about building on top of it with those helpful shortcuts, convenience initializers. These guys are all about making our lives as developers a whole lot easier.
A convenience initializer is exactly what it sounds like. It's a secondary, optional helper. Its purpose isn't to do the heavy lifting. Nope. Its job is to give you a simpler path to creating an object, usually by providing some common default values.
Now, its rules are different, and this is super important. A convenience initializer must call another initializer from the same class. It delegates the work sideways. And that chain of calls eventually has to land on a designated initializer. It's a helper, remember, not the boss.
Check out this example. We've added a convenience init that takes no parameters at all. And what does it do? It just calls our main designated initializer, self.init, and passes in a default value of 4 for the wheels. It's the perfect shortcut. Now, to make a standard car, you don't have to specify the wheels every single time. So much cleaner.
Okay, we have our foundational builders and our helpful shortcuts, but how do they all work together, especially when you have classes inheriting from other classes? This is where Swift's strict but brilliant rules of construction come into play.
And it all boils down to this two-directional flow. A convenience init always passes the baton horizontally to another initializer in its own class. Once a designated init gets the baton, it finishes its own setup, and then it must call upwards to its superclass. Just remember this: sideways, then up. That's the rule that makes it all work.
Now, all this might seem a little strict, but there is a fantastic reason for it all. Let's pull everything together and do a final inspection to see why this system is one of Swift's biggest strengths.
This table here is the perfect cheat sheet. It lays out all the key differences. Just look at the direction. Designated always calls upward to a parent. Convenience always calls horizontally in its own class. One is the required main initializer, the other is an optional helper. This clear division of labor is what makes the whole system so incredibly robust.
And this is the big payoff. By enforcing this strict process, Swift literally eliminates an entire category of bugs where you might accidentally try to use an object before it's fully formed. It guarantees your code is predictable, safe, and a whole lot easier to maintain down the road. It's safety by design. So the big takeaway here is to be intentional. Use designated initializers for the core essential setup of your classes. Then sprinkle in convenience initializers for those common defaults and shortcuts. And that really leaves us with one final thought. How can you take these rules and start using them to make your own code safer and cleaner starting today?